This is BYU Sports Nation, brought to you by the BYU Store, simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now, from Studio B, here's Spencer Linton and Jarom Jordan.
BYU Sports Nation is live, your day-to-day play-by-play in Studio B, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. Wednesday, October 20th, wherever and however you're connected, great to have you with us. I am Spencer Linton, teamed up with the guy who just seems a little different today, Jarom Jordan. You look,
what's
you look
different?
Good. You look different. Is there something new? Did you freshen up the haircut?
I took a shower finally.
Congratulations.
No, I didn't get a haircut. We have new shorter mics now. We're less in the giraffe game now.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, a little shorter, a little more versatile. Yeah.
We've trimmed up the microphone arm length.
Yeah, it only took 3 years.
We figured it out. We think.
All good.
Your show lineup features, yes, new microphones in Studio B, and what BYU football hopes is a new attitude, and more importantly, a new result compared to the last two games. What is BYU football playing for exactly over the last 5 regular season games? The voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell, will give his opinion on that matter, and what type of opponent mentality he expects to show up from Washington State, who just fired their head coach. Plus, Deep Blue with Tyler Allgeier focuses on the hero who drives his hard work and humility, a loaded show. Bring on today's BYU Sports Nation headlines.
BYU football preps for Washington State in the Battle of the Cougars Saturday afternoon. Head coach Kalani Sitake says BYU needs to be up for this game regardless of the coaching situation in Pullman.
We can't assume that they're not going to be ready. They're going to be ready, and they're going to be motivated to play. And we've been there before. We see how that can elevate your style of play, and we just need to make sure that we're ready to go when it's time to go.
Maybe it's a Las Vegas Raiders situation where Gruden goes out, craziness, right? They showed up against Denver. Who knows? BYU's got to be ready, says Kalani Sitake. BYU and Washington State pregame coverage on BYU Radio, 1:30 Eastern Saturday and 2 Eastern on BYU TV. These 90-minute countdowns, baby, there are a bunch of them.
Gotta love it. And BYU's got to keep the undefeated mark against the Pac-12 alive.
Let's go.
The now former and recently fired Washington State head coach Nick Rolovich and his lawyer are taking legal action against the university for what Rolovich is calling an illegal termination. He accuses Washington State Athletic Director Pat Chun of discriminatory and vindictive behavior. This is just beginning, and it's not pretty.
Well, luckily it's not a distraction. What? The BYU offensive line is one of 19 units being considered for the Joe Moore Award, given to the nation's most outstanding O-line by the Foundation for Teamwork. Also, ESPN names freshman Campbell Barrington a midseason true freshman All-American.
BYU women's soccer moves up 3 spots in the latest United Soccer Coaches poll to number 12. The Cougars face San Francisco on the road tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern kickoff. Listen on BYU Radio 107.9 FM and the BYU Cougars app.
And BYU women's hoops superstar Shaylee Gonzalez has been named to the Becky Hammon Player of the Year watch list, given to the Mid-Major Player of the Year. Gonzalez was the co-West Coast Conference Player of the Year last year.
All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
What's Trending presented by Bodyguards, protection for a life worth living. Learn more at bodyguards.com. BYU football 5-2 after back-to-back losses.
What?
The Cougars 3 spots out of the latest top 25 poll, reeling a bit, understandably, after that loss against Boise State and then Baylor. So with 2 losses now on the schedule officially, Jarom, at this point, what is BYU football playing for in the final 5 regular season games?
Nothing. Hang it up. No, of course, there's a ton to play for. To finish ranked. That's what BYU is playing for. In independence, in a normal year, non-COVID year, right? BYU had an amazing year last year. In a sort of regular type of season, normal season, BYU's not finished in the AP top 25. So that is up for grabs. That's something BYU hasn't done in a decade. Let's go. 10-3 would probably do that. 11-2 certainly would. Probably top 20 at that point. It'd be the first AP poll top 25 finish since 2009. That'd be awesome. 5-0 versus the Pac-12 is up for grabs. 4-0 versus the Pac-12 South is up for grabs. That would be 4 of the 5 teams, or of the 6, right? Preseason top 25 next year is up for grabs as well. If BYU finishes 10-3 and returns starting quarterbacks, then Yeah, you're probably a top 25 team in a lot of places.
The receiving votes at the worst.
That'd be fun, right? Showing you're ready to compete in the Big 12 with an overall season. I'm not talking just the Baylor game. Obviously, if you only looked at that, it's like, he's not ready. It was one game. If you can go 10-3 against 7 Power 5s, guess what? Massive step forward for this program to feel like, okay, we can be in the upper crust of the Big 12 when we get in there. And also, what BYU's playing for is to, in a normal season again, to be in the college football playoff rankings. Outside of last year, BYU had not been in them ever. So getting ranked in that in a non-COVID, regular Power 5 kind of schedule, actually it's like beefed up, right? It's a plus schedule, would be great. So to me, there's still a lot to play for. I'm hoping BYU can go at least 4-1 in the back 5, get that bowl game, finish with 10 wins, man. That'd be awesome.
At least the Associated Press still recognizes BYU's as a top 11 finish last year, right? I know it was the COVID scenario, but...
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, yes, that was an asterisk in the history of BYU sports, right? Football. In this kind of beefed up schedule, yeah, let's go.
Sure. Is that for everybody else, though? So, like, does last year's national champion and the teams that finished ahead of BYU, do they have an asterisk next to them as well?
No, I'm just looking at history with BYU. I know that last year was, yes, but it wasn't a normal season for the Big Ten and the Pac-12. BYU got this head start. It was awesome. BYU took advantage. I'm not lessening it. I'm just saying it has a unique place in history. It doesn't fit with all the other seasons.
Sure. My point is that BYU has a chance, technically speaking, to finish, even with an asterisk, back-to-back seasons in the top 25, which hasn't happened since 2008 and 2009.
Yeah, right? Scientific fact, undebatable.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah. So I love that BYU is still playing for that, and that they're only 3 spots out of the top 25. The way things have gone this season in college football, other than Georgia, like BYU could beat Washington State, and there could be 7 teams that lose in the top 25 again, and the Cougars be back in the top 25 this week. It's been that crazy.
I expect that scenario to play out.
It's happening every week. So BYU could be a ranked team again, even after the 2 losses, if they show up and play well against Washington State. Certainly, if they beat Washington State and then win what you're calling the Bronco Bowl, on October 30th and get to 7-2, and they've got 5 Power 5 wins at that point.
It's awesome.
Yes, BYU's in the ESPN conference as an independent, and being ranked is the way that we look at relevance for BYU football. So if you get ranked, which might happen at the end of this week, great. You know, you're pushing back in the right direction. I jokingly said that BYU is playing for a de facto Pac-12 South title still.
No, we aren't joking. I know you got some backlash. You're not joking. Don't shy away from it.
No, I am joking because it's not real. It's not real.
When you de facto is real.
No. Yes. De facto it means not real. It means not legitimate.
No, I know. BYU's playing for the de facto Pac-12 title. That is true. It's not real. We know they're not in the Pac-12.
Yes, that's the satire. That is the satire. I'm telling you
that. It's great. Don't shy away from it.
We will hang a de facto Pac-12 South banner.
Yes.
Yes, it is satire. It is
absolutely. Don't let a couple of Utes get you down. We're good.
Not that. It is satire. We love it. We embrace it. They're still playing for it, right?
Yes, everyone knows BYU's not in the Pac-12.
Washington State, USC on the schedule.
Yes.
BYU's never won 4 Power 5 games in a season.
Never 4, because they probably didn't play 4 hardly ever.
They've never won 4. Well, they played
outside
7 in 2000. Yeah, and Independence, they've done it a bunch, right?
Yes, the last 10 years are exceptional.
They've never won 4 Power 5 games in the last decade, and they have an opportunity to do that on Saturday. They've already got 3. Yes, so they're playing for history.
If BYU lose to Washington State, now there's massive concern. I think part of the fan base right now is notably concerned the way the last 2 weeks have gone. I am not at that level quite yet. I expect BYU to beat Washington State and be back in the top 25 or like right out of it at 26. I expect BYU to play well the rest of the season. I feel like the last 2 weeks were exceptional, not normal. I still think BYU is a good team. I never thought BYU was going to be a playoff contender. I said 2 weeks ago, there are 2 losses still there. I hate that they happen the next 2 weeks, but you're going to lose. You were going to lose at some point. I still think there's one more loss in the final 5 for BYU somewhere. I hope it's not this week, though. I hope it's not this week.
A 10-win season matters. A double-digit win season matters for BYU football, especially
100%.
Because coming into the season, a bunch of the players led by Uriah Leatawa were saying, look, we need to prove that last year wasn't a fluke, that it wasn't just about the cupcake schedule. Like, we're legit. We can play with Power 5 teams. We have a lot to prove.
To me, they already have done that.
Post Zach Wilson, we've got a lot to prove.
I think BYU still has work to do, obviously, But to me, they have checked that box. They've proved that last year was not an anomaly, an exception. It was awesome. And to me, BYU built on that. Well, wait, they have 2 losses. They only had 1 loss last year. It's a different schedule. It's a different group. It really is. So this team has played really well. Obviously, the last 2 weeks haven't gone the Cougars' way. But at 5-2 and just outside the top 25 and 3 Power 5 wins, this is what I was hoping for. In the offseason, was that BYU would start to play big boy ball, right? And they have. Yes, they got pushed around Saturday. I'm not talking about singular games. I'm talking about the collective of 7 that we have seen so far.
I know that the season now feels like it's been relegated to a degree, that BYU is playing for the Independence Bowl. That's where they have the bowl tie-in. I get it. But ESPN owns, last I checked, 16 bowl games. And if BYU is a ranked team in the top 20 and they have 10 regular season wins, let's say that they do what is statistically unlikely and they run the table from here on out and they're 10-2 at the end of the regular season. ESPN has liberty, if other bowl game spots are not filled by Power 5 teams that are locked into these games through contracts. If there are open spots, the Cougars can move into a different bowl game, or they can move somebody else that's maybe a higher caliber opponent to play BYU in the Independence Bowl. There are a lot of moving pieces.
How many feathers do they want to ruffle? So in 2015, BYU essentially took Wyoming's spot from the Mountain West in the Vegas Bowl. So it just depends what ESPN wants to do. Now, the most likely scenario is Independence Bowl. The second most likely is the other contractual other game, Guaranteed Rate Bowl, which is Cheez-It Bowl. So there could be other bowl games in the mix.
Yeah, the Idaho Potato Bowl.
Chances are, right, that situation too. Very exciting. The chances are that it's Indy or Guaranteed Rate, but we'll see. And yes, when BYU's in the Big 12, we're going to know Big 12 tie-ins, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, E, F, G. They may have that many, right?
Okay.
Then we'll kind of know, like, okay, you're fighting for maybe a better bowl game, better opponent, more money. Because we talk about this every year, but what do you want out of a bowl game as a BYU fan?
I want a compelling matchup. I want a compelling matchup.
Is it location? Is it the money BYU gets? I think matchup probably would win that Twitter poll, right? It's all about, because if you're not going to the game, you don't really care where the game is played per se.
You want to watch 2 good teams play football.
Yes. If we're taking the show to the game, which we typically have, then I care about the location. I think Shreveport would be awesome. Never been to that part of Louisiana. That'd be sweet. I know it's unique and whatever. Phoenix would be fun too. Great BYU fan base in the valley there. That'd be awesome. So, yeah, we'll see. 2 weeks ago, we were saying BYU could be bowl eligible today. That could happen Saturday.
Yeah, they could be bowl eligible.
Does the Independence Bowl show up in Pullman? They're like, hey!
And make history with the most Power 5 wins they've ever had in a season. Beat Washington State, who don't have a head coach right now. And the guy who called the plays over the last 3 wins, their offensive coordinator, he's gone too.
Yeah, the DC's the interim.
A lot on the line. BYU's still playing for, as we have chronicled, top 25 finish for a second consecutive year. Perhaps a better bowl game scenario or opponent if they are ranked. Double-digit win season. Of course, pride's on the line. You don't want to lose 3 games in a row.
Well, San Jose State, has that, so it's all good.
Okay.
Every FBS team has that. Even UConn has that.
Hey, our question of the day. With 5 games remaining in the regular season, what is BYU playing for over those final 5? Let's go to Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports Nation.
Mark Stroud answers on Instagram. We're playing for the Pac-12 South Championship.
That's exactly right.
Playing for an undefeated record against the 5 Pac-12 opponents.
Not de facto. BYU has entered the Pac-12 and will technically be in the Pac-12. No.
At Steven56205625 on Twitter. You can change your handle. Just throwing that out there.
What? There were 56205624 amounts of Stevens.
No denying
he had to go to that number.
No denying that.
You thought that was a choice?
He can change his handle. Final top 25 ranking. Do this and it does 2 things.
Okay.
1, submit this as one of the great seasons in BYU history. Great, not special.
Given the Power 5 amount. I get that argument.
Great, not special, he says.
Yeah.
2, make this team believe that with returning starters, next year's team can be special and do serious business against a tough schedule.
It's less tough next year.
Weirdly.
It is.
We think, right? We think.
Well, Yeah.
Based on what the teams are doing this year.
On quantity, but yeah. No, there's some tough Notre Dame and Oregon, both away from Provo, right? Those two games are tougher than any two games on this year's schedule to me.
Yeah, what are those teams next year?
What's Arkansas? Arkansas is good, but they got blown out 2 weeks ago, right?
Arkansas was kind of like BYU. Got off to a really fast start, flew up the rankings, and now they've lost 3 games in a row.
Yeah. I hope BYU's not Arkansas.
Okay.
There's a little, I see the analogy. Not quite that level, hopefully.
Hashtag BYUSN Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. What are they playing for over the last 5?
Yeah. Coming up, should we be asking Samson Nakua for fashion advice?
Always. Always. Especially if you look at what he had on last night during the Kalani Sitake show. Plus, the voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell, had a great seat of what Samson Nakua was wearing. He'll join us from San Francisco as he prepares to call BYU soccer. And, of course, we're going to discuss what in the world we expect at Washington State without their head coach. This is BYU Sports Nation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Bodyguards. Protection for a life worth living.
Quick crack. Wash all you want. Don't drive dirty.
Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
What is Random Acts? A big surprise.
Mom cries. Bad disguise.
Oversized.
What else do we do?
Wheelchair.
We care.
Fresh air. Balloon share.
Work hat.
Contract.
Who's giving back?
Random Act!
And that's a fact.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Basketball. Coming up tomorrow, BYU men's basketball media day, 2-hour edition of BYU Sports Nation. We'll just talk to Mark Pope, Alex Barcelo, Caleb Loner, and others to preview the season. Noon Eastern on BYU Radio, BYU TV, baby.
I can't wait for fans to be able to watch BYU play basketball, not through their Zoom screens. It's going to be incredible.
Right? Yeah, last year was weird, obviously.
We are live in Studio B with your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. Granted, you're watching us through screens now, and we appreciate
or
that.
listening.
I am Spencer Linton alongside Jarom Jordan. Let's get back to our Twitter question while we have a moment, just because there are so many great responses coming in. What does BYU have to play for over the last 5 regular season football games? They're 5-2. Caleb Hatch on Instagram says, hopefully 6 Power 5 wins and a 10-win overall season.
I'm there because I think BYU drops one of these 3 Power 5s left. I don't know which one. They're all winnable. I feel like BYU should win all 3. We're just playing the numbers, right? 6 Power 5 wins would be amazing, Spencer. 6-1. Are you kidding me? And then 10 wins against this schedule. At the beginning of the season, we both said we're expecting 8, hoping for 9. We're beyond that. Like 9 would be fine.
Even with back-to-back losses, still above that.
Still a hope for that, which is pretty incredible. This has been an overachievement. I know BYU pulled a Connor Mance and went out 5-0, right? Ranked 10th. And we're like, whoa, But the regression to the mean has happened with the season, and that's okay. There's still a ton to play for.
At the Hutch Bunch on Twitter.
Do you feel like they could change that, or are you cool with that?
No, I'm cool with that. I feel like there's been some real thought put into the Hutch Bunch.
But not Steven 56205625?
Correct.
I feel like that was very calculated as well. Probably a password for Steven. Who knows?
I hope it's not a password because he's giving it out to everybody. All right. We continue with the Hutch Bunch on Twitter. Quote, playing for the Pac-12 South banner. For her great record that any of us would have taken at the beginning of the season.
Yep.
Playing for pride in the Bronco Bowl.
Yep. Let's go.
The possibility of a more prestigious bowl.
What?
Prestigious?
No, there's no prestige beyond the New Year's Six and the Capital One Bowl and the Holiday Bowl. To me, they're all kind of the same.
Okay, so the Independence Bowl is the same as everything else unless you're a New Year's Six?
Or the Capital One Bowl or Holiday. Okay. And I guess Alamo is a little elevated. But there are tiers of bowl games, but there's a massive group of most of them that BYU will be in. Yeah.
Okay, so a better bowl game opponent maybe? Give me UTSA or Coastal Carolina if they're undefeated.
Like, the bowl game isn't prestigious that BYU is going to go to. The bowl game isn't. But maybe the opponent's better. Yeah.
They continue, but mostly the guys are playing for each other in Cougar pride.
There's always that. Even San Jose State has that. Don't forget.
Joining us now is the voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell from San Francisco via Zoom as he prepares to call 12th-ranked BYU women's soccer at USF tonight on BYU Radio. He'll be in Pullman, Washington this Saturday for BYU football. Greg, let's start in the first location. How's the Bay Area forecast today?
Forecast is for 50s and precipitation. And right now it's 50s and precipitation. So.
Let's talk about the wallpaper there in the hotel. That's quite the splotchy design.
Yeah, whenever I end up on the road and doing these hits with you guys, we got to just, take what comes for the background, right? And
this is not a Zoom
today's
choice.
Today's background motif is a little splotchy. Yeah.
The color scheme is right, though. That matters.
BYU's color. I like that. Yeah.
All right, Greg. Of course, again, soccer tonight, but let's focus on football. And specifically, what type of Washington State team do you expect to show up on Saturday afternoon against BYU after Wazzu fires head coach Nick Rolovich and 4 assistants yesterday?
Including Mark Weber.
And Kalani brings up a great point last night on the coaches show. BYU was in a similar, not identical, but a similar boat for a couple of big games last year. They were missing, let's just say, not entirely accurate, but close to half a staff for the Boise State game and the UCF bowl game due to COVID protocols last year. So BYU went into those two pretty big games having to kind of, reshuffle assignments and make some last minute adjustments with guys they thought would be there and weren't. Again, not exactly apples to apples here, but you can see how teams respond and staffs respond and duties shift. And what did BYU do in those two games? Like lights out, right? So what you have to do is expect Washington State's, efforts to be redoubled, and don't be surprised if they come on out and look good. Again, everything says they shouldn't, but let's keep in mind, defensive play caller still there, offensive co-OC still there. And now granted, his play calling duties were taken away a few weeks ago, but he'd been doing it to start the season. Now they were struggling then. We're playing better now without him doing it, but he's back to doing it. You can get by with those guys having done their jobs and are doing the same jobs they've done. So, it would be wrong to say that or presume that the program is going to fall apart here before the BYU game, because BYU's shown how it can be done. Now, missing the head man is a big deal, clearly. Maybe some players, might take a little longer this week to get themselves mentally right where they need to be. So there could be some lag from individuals here and there. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm looking at what BYU had to deal with and showed how they could deal with it, and saying don't be surprised if Wazzu figures out a way to look like a decent football team on Saturday.
Yeah, and it almost reminds me of 2013 Washington, Marcus Tuiasosopo's the head coach in the Fight Hunger Bowl, and they showed up in that one, 2015. A lot of drama on campus with Missouri. The game's neutral, but Gary Pinkel says he's stepping down at the end of the year. Missouri won that game. So, yeah, hopefully BYU shows up and plays well. And I think we agree that BYU is likely going to bounce back in this one, given the way the last 2 weeks have played out, that this Cougar team is motivated down the back five to finish strong because, like we've been talking about, there's a lot to play for BYU still.
Yeah, and to get to that point, but to finish up the previous point, you referenced the bowl game with the interim coach. A couple of NFL teams just last week didn't have their head coaches there, or play callers there on the sidelines, and both those teams won games. Arizona Cardinals minus Kingsbury, Las Vegas with a new coach minus the Gruden thing on a weird week for Vegas. So yeah, teams find a way. Now, BYU in bounce back mode, absolutely. I mean, back-to-back losses. Let's just say right now, you guys would agree, I think Baylor's the best team they've played this year, right? Yeah. That was a really good football team, and BYU got really, challenged up front, both lines of scrimmage for sure. And the injuries on the D-line did not help at all for BYU last week. And being down a couple of offensive linemen again still didn't help at all last week. So if offensive line health returns, they might not still be entirely where they need to be on the D-line right now, but I really do think there's that bounce back mentality that has to help at this point. And I think, you can expect to maybe put some heat on Wazzu in areas that might challenge them in a week of turmoil. And maybe that's part of the game plan as well for BYU this weekend. But it's frying pan to the fire in a lot of ways, because you've got to play well here, because on the flip side of it, and they don't look beyond this week, but you've got Bronco and one of the best and most explosive offenses in the country coming into your place the next week. And so you don't want to see things start going, truly sideways here. And so I think it's a big week in a lot of ways because of what comes right after too.
The voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell, is with us on BYU Sports Nation. He's in San Francisco getting set to call BYU women's soccer. We'll talk about the 12th ranked Cougars in that regard in just a moment. But let's continue on with this bounce-back opportunity for BYU football, Greg. They take on Washington State again with a chance to win their fourth Power 5 game, which has never happened in an individual season, certainly not in independence. What else is BYU playing for besides a little bit of history this Saturday and for the remainder of the season over the final 5 games?
Yeah, interesting note, too, that fifth game against Wazzu, right? But none of the previous 4 have been in Pullman. So the first time they played was in a bowl game down in San Diego, and then it was back-to-back home games when you could do that kind of thing back in the late 80s and 90s, and against the Pac-12 or Pac-10 opponent back then. And then you had the game in 2012 to open the season, the first game of the Mike Leach era in Provo. So fifth game, but first in Pullman. So it's kind of interesting. And I forget what you even said after that.
No, it's
Spencer.
okay. I mean, they're playing for a fourth Power 5 win, but.
What are they playing for? Yeah. I think it's 10 wins. It's to get ranked. It's to play in and win your bowl game. So there's some things still in play. The bar kind of moves, right? When you're an independent, you stay perfect as long as you can. Then that first loss comes, and you say, well, we can stay in the NY6 mix if we kind of win out at this point, stay a one-loss team. Then the second loss comes. Then you realize, well, we're probably trying to play for that 6th win, get bowl eligible, try and find double digits and play and win a bowl game. So the targets kind of move around a little bit when you're an independent. That's kind of where BYU's at right now. They've got the 2 losses, trying to right the ship and make sure they get to a good place here, because we all know that they're playing in a bowl game. I mean, like that 6th win is there, and that 7th win is likely already there. Those are kind of gimmies. And so you're going to be a bowl eligible team. You already know where you're going to go and what conference you're going to play, unless something unusual happens. I mean, if BYU to get on a crazy roll and finish without any more losses, there could be some reshuffling. But for the most part, you're kind of ticketed for where you're going. So things are out there that kind of say there are some bars yet to reach, and I think we hit them. Yeah.
To me, this season is validating not only last year, but that BYU could handle a Power 5 schedule. And BYU is going to play a few more Power 5s, obviously. And here we are 2 years away, right? Under 2 years, I guess, for BYU to the Big 12. Now, the Baylor game was an individual game. That's not what I'm referring to for those who are going to come at me on Twitter. I'm talking the full 7. It feels like, okay, yes, if BYU can be an 8+ win team in the Big 12 regularly and occasionally challenge for the title in a special season, Now we're talking about the football that we're hoping BYU is going to be able to play in the Big 12. What have you seen from this season in regards to sort of validating what we felt like BYU was, but now has a chance at of showing, okay, when we play a bunch of Power Fives, we can do okay?
Yeah, well, I still feel that they showed by the way they started the season, and even how they competed against Baylor, that they're going to be a good fit. They're not going to be fish out of water. Yet, I think Kalani alluded to this too on his show last night. When you go from high level G5, which Utah was, to P5, there's that learning curve and feeling out period where you don't just step right in and win titles. And so there has to be expected kind of that ramp up to where you are where you want to be and need to be. But I don't think it'll take BYU a ton of time to get there. In fact, I think even these 2 years of transition will be helpful in getting BYU into a spot where they can compete immediately to be in the mix in the Big 12. But there's no doubt that what BYU saw down on the weekend in Waco on both lines of scrimmage is a pretty decent indicator of the kind of line play you need to compete in and win games in the Big 12. We'll all be fascinated to see what it's like when Baylor takes on Oklahoma, and to a lesser extent Texas, although Texas is kind of in the middle of the pack right now with their losses. We want to see where Baylor goes from here, because our belief is that's the best team BYU's played, and a team that could challenge some of the best teams in the Big 12 after a 2-7 season last year overall. So let's see how Baylor does. That's a pretty good indicator. That said, I want to go back to this point. I thought BYU was kind of into a game that became a bit of a shootout after that first quarter, and really was a matter of just answering scores. And you look back at it, and BYU missed a field goal on a possession they had inside the 40 after a sack. They ended up taking a long field goal, missed it. They had a strip sack giveaway when they were going in the other way. Those are 2 point scoring opportunities that, had they resulted in touchdowns or points of any kind, you would have kind of hung around a little longer. Things flipped pretty weirdly and quickly with the strip sack, the onside kick. Those are kind of sudden change moments, but I don't felt like BYU was outclassed, blown out, not competitive at Baylor at all. And yes, you allow 303 rushing, you're probably going to lose that game. By the same token, guys, if you average 7+ yards per play on offense, which BYU did,
pretty good.
And if you're 174 in pass, and if you're 174 in pass efficiency, which BYU was, you expect to win that game. They moved the ball. They moved the ball with big plays against speedy defenders. They were in the game. It was a sudden change game, and those things we just talked about kind of took it where it went. But it wasn't like, oh, this is something they're going to have to really have to adjust to. They'll be good, and they'll be right there.
The Cougars will try and snap that back-to-back losing streak when they take on Washington State. Okay, now to BYU women's soccer, up to number 12 in the latest United Soccer Coaches poll. The Cougars taking on San Francisco tonight. We know how explosive they have been at home. Greg, what do you expect from the offense, and how many goals should we anticipate tonight on the road at San Francisco?
Well, I haven't personally called a win yet at San Francisco. I've made 2 trips here, and they were both losses in 2015 and 2017. So my personal recollections aren't great here.
And you're a big jinx guy,
BYU,
too.
What's that?
And you're a big jinx guy, too.
Oh yeah, I'm all about that. I'm saying I haven't experienced what it's like to win a game here yet. BYU comes here, they play lower scoring games. Again, they won the last one here. I didn't do that one in 2019. I got 15 and 17, and those I think were both 2-1 losses, I think. Anyway, so BYU's not played some of its best soccer in this venue. But what has happened is the Cougars have gone on the road already in league and opened at Gonzaga when the Zags were ranked and beat them 6-1. That was a game BYU needed to show they could take what was happening at Southfield and translate it a bit, because they hadn't won a road game before that night, and they haven't played a road game since that night. But that one they can really kind of hang their hat on a little bit and say, that's who we are. We showed who we are when we went back home and did the same thing to the next 3 teams. I mean, they've played 4 WCC games, plus 23 in goal differential in 4 games, 25-2. This team is rolling right now. I mean, they're playing incredible offensive soccer. And so what I want to see, what I'm personally hoping for, is that it swings over to the Bay Area tonight, and they play that kind of game in a venue where historically it's lower scoring and not great results. And so, not truly a monkey on the back situation, because they have, I think they've won 9 of 11 meetings against USF all time. But at this particular venue, playing their best soccer and highest scoring soccer hasn't always been the MO. So I'd like to see that tonight. But it's just crazy how prolific this team is right now. I think 15 different players have scored on this roster right now. It comes from all over. And to have two, dynamic players like Kayla and Cam with the numbers they've put up, just ridiculous numbers for two players on the same team. This team is rolling right now. And this is as high as ranked as as highly ranked as they've been all season, even after suffering a pretty tough loss at home before league play began. So they got ramped up in a hurry, and it's fun to watch this team right now, just lighting it up.
Greg Wrubell is in San Francisco. You can listen to him live on BYU Radio 107.9 FM and the BYU Cougars app tonight, 10 Eastern, 8 p.m. Mountain Time. Greg, thanks for the time. Great to talk with you.
Always a pleasure. See you guys.
All
Go
right.
Cougs.
No jinxes. No jinxes.
No jinxes. Nation's number one scoring team right now.
Yep.
BYU women's volleyball.
Number one
soccer.
scoring.
Amazing.
Offense. And women's volleyball is not bad either. They're probably
volleyball scoring roughly 25 points a game when they win, too. Coming up, Deep Blue featuring Tyler Allgeier and his relationship with his grandpa.
And is Baylor Romney an underappreciated quarterback? Well, he showed up on a top 10 list somewhere. Details next as BYU Sports Nation.
My name is Spencer Finnegan. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. During my sophomore year, I got married to my sweetheart, Mary, and there's tons of unexpected expenses when it comes to marriage. We were looking for scholarships. I found the replenishment grant, and my local alumni chapter gave me a grant to help me focus in on school. I'm so excited to, now that I've graduated, give back to those students that are coming to BYU in the future.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork sells Ford vehicles including the F-150, the pickup designed for work and play. Tim Daly Ford maintains a large inventory, providing more choices for selecting an F-150 with the power and engineering to carry and tow heavy loads. The F-150's design offers comfort, safety, and a range of options to choose from. Think Ford, think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
I don't think I've ever turned on anything from BYU TV and not found myself smiling.
I think it's just really inspiring, just seeing people help one another.
It helps me show my kids good examples of the way that we should live.
I really like Studio C because we can all laugh together.
It's actually something that makes us reconnect and brings us closer to our family.
I love BYU TV.
All of us together.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Visible Supply Chain Management.
BYU football at Kalani is available on demand. Watch Greg Wrubell, the coach Kalani, of course. Talk Baylor, talk Washington State, Nakua Brothers in studio. Deep Blue featuring Tyler Allgeier, which is coming up on this very program. And the film room with Malik Moore. It's available on demand on the BYU TV app.
He is Jeremiah. I'm Spencer. This is BYU Sports Nation. To interact with the show throughout the day, follow us on our social media platforms. There are 5 primary platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Let's whip it. The Cougar Whip Around, presented by Visible Supply Chain Management, tackling America's most challenging shipping problems.
Assistant producer of the program, Big Game Boomer, has Baylor Romney as the 9th best quarterback in the nation. Should he be higher?
No, it's fine. Whatever. What are the metrics that go into this? As long as Baylor's in the top 10, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, Spencer Rattler's number 4 because he's a backup quarterback now.
He's a backup.
Cam Rising? Is Cam Rising a backup quarterback at Utah? He's number 5. I thought he was the starter.
He's the starter now.
So you got to take him on the list. Maybe Baylor should be number 8.
Nice. Zach Calzada of Texas A&M, who beat Alabama, is 3rd. He's the starter.
Okay, so he should be number 7.
No, he shouldn't be higher. It's fine. Top 10 backup, that's great. You always want your backup to be, ready to go. G5 killer, dude. That's what Baylor Romney is.
Fantastic.
Maybe he'll get a shot at a Power 5 one day.
Where's Jarrett Garantano?
Remember how he's not the quarterback?
Last night on BYU football with Kalani Sitake, the Nakua brothers joined the show. They brought the energy. And Samson Nakua, he wore something special. Greg Wrubell asked him about it.
What is up with this tonight?
Man, it's getting cold out there, you know.
Yes,
so
it is.
I want to stay as much as I can in bed, so I want to be comfortable at all times. You know, you got the comfy, so I was like, I got to get it. Got to bust it out today.
Jarom, would you rock the comfy?
The pink one?
Yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. I wouldn't rock it like Samson. He's got way more swag than I do, but yeah, that thing looks so comfortable.
I wear a lot of things that are loud and kind of out there. I don't know if I can pull that one off.
Oh, pulling it off is a very different question, Spencer. Would I rock it? Would I wear it? That's different than would I wear it?
If I can't pull it off, then I probably won't wear it. But yeah, I mean,
who says it's public? Why can't
you wear
it just
publicly?
Yeah.
You would wear that publicly.
In 2021, you can wear it any color. It's great. Where do you place more blame on the losses the last 2 weeks? I'm shocked we got to Wednesday with this question. This should have been trending on Monday. Afternoon kicks or Navy helmets?
Oh, it's all about the Navy helmets. Burn the Navy, Jarom.
How dare you?
Not the military.
Put down Kenya
uniforms
and the. Oh.
Burn the Navy uniforms. No more. No, it's ridiculous. It's not about uniforms. We've been down this road before.
You've destroyed multiple threads of
We've
Cougar
been
board.
down this road before. Like the all-whites were the cursed uniforms. Now the all-whites are beloved because BYU's winning in them, and they're playing in the all-whites this Saturday.
The all-whites have a name and a blessing, Spencer.
They do?
From Dr. Nixon. The Stormtrooper.
Oh, the Stormtrooper.
That's what he called it.
My bad.
I like that.
Okay.
Except, hopefully, Jaren Hall is more accurate than the Stormtrooper this Saturday.
No, if anything, like maybe the afternoon kicks because BYU was used to kind of a night schedule. Maybe that's a factor, but...
Is BYU nocturnal?
No.
Is that the issue?
Can I answer neither?
Is BYU a bat?
Are you... You want to burn the Navy helmets?
I don't want to burn the Navy.
They're great.
I'm an Air Force guy.
Okay.
Born on Air Force.
BYU soccer is averaging 1.8 goals per game on the road this year in 4 matches, while averaging 5.1 goals per game at home. We just chronicled this with Greg Wrubell. Over under 3 goals for BYU women's soccer tonight at San Francisco.
4. Exactly.
Gonna go over?
San Francisco has given up 2 in 3 different games, never 3 this year. But BYU's going to put up a 4 spot tonight.
Ooh, okay.
I've seen that field. It's turf, so it's very fast, right? And it's kind of tight quarters. BYU's still going to rock it.
This is this question is well put together because when I looked at the game, I was like, oh, they probably score 3. If I got to go somewhere, I'm probably going to go over just because BYU scoring 6 and 7. They scored 6 at Gonzaga against a ranked team.
I know it's on the road, but will the nation's #1 scoring offense score 4? Yeah.
We hope. Yeah.
Ask Gonzaga and St. Mary's how it's going. Coming up, rise to shout out to a BYU Cougar getting it done in the pros.
And we go deep blue with BYU running back Tyler Allgeier. Humility, hard work, and the hero that drives him behind the scenes. An amazing story on the way on BYU Sports Nation.
Professor Rock here.
The Food Nanny.
Chandler Scott here.
Samry.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
I just want to tell you about this amazing,
excellent, cool account called My Style.
My Style checking. I'm talking travel points,
Gift card, concert tickets.
All just for using my account.
That's My Style.
So check it out.
Give it a shot.
Open your My Style checking account today.
I know what it's like to be overlooked, to be doubted, to fly under the radar. I only had one offer coming out of high school, but I was ready for every moment, every opportunity, and every shot that I got. Now I'm playing professional basketball, aiming to be one of the best shooters on the planet. And I'm just getting started. Be ready for your moment with Rapid Reboot, the future of rapid recovery.
Tis I, Sir Simon de Canterville.
When an American family moves into a grand English estate, they hear it's haunted, but they don't expect this.
Intrude upon these sacred grounds. Be my guest and seest what fate awaits.
Don't miss this modern retelling of a classic tale by Oscar Wilde on BYU TV or on the free app.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
If you like amazing volleyball, top 25, 8-0 in WCC, mega battles, like Pacific Rim style, Godzilla vs. King Kong, that's what San Diego and BYU is. Women's volleyball, Friday night, 9 Eastern on BYU TV and the BYU TV app. It's going to be epic.
One of 6 ranked teams on campus right now, or I guess I should say 5 because BYU football dropped out. But they could be back in. They could be back in.
Yeah.
Right over
Next
Washington
week.
State, just 3 spots out.
Let's go.
Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation live from Studio B. It is time to go deep blue with Tyler Allgeier, who's been overcoming the odds since birth and now plays for more than just himself. This is Deep Blue featuring the BYU star running back presented by Brady Industries, Simply Better.
He's not one to ever talk about his hardships and struggles, but you know that he's been through quite a bit, and for a guy to go through all that and to love others and to serve others, he's a perfect fit for what we want here at BYU.
I didn't want to have kids. I didn't at that time. I was only 25, so I still was like, I wasn't married. I was in a relationship, but I was like, okay, well, I'm not ready yet. So next thing you know, when I found out I was pregnant, so I was actually on birth control. So birth control didn't work. So then I ended up being pregnant. And like I said, it was scary. But then I was like, okay, well, I mean, I'm already 5 months pregnant. I'm going to go ahead and have the child.
His umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck.
Ended up getting choked out by the umbilical cord. So every time she pushed and all that, it was just like getting tighter and tighter.
Next thing you know, after all this experience with what happened with him, I was just like, why is this happening to me? You know, I was like, I just want a healthy baby. You know, I wanted a healthy baby, but.
2 doctors and 5 nurses and ran to in ICU and intubate him, put him in the ventilator and connect to the heart line with the umbilical cord to sustain the medication for blood pressure because his blood pressure was dropping down.
So, and then ended up being in the hospital for like a couple of weeks or whatnot.
It was in God's hands at that point, and like I said, it felt so good to have my parents' support.
I was monitoring him when he grew up. If I see a sign of neurological status changes, but so far so good, knock on wood, God is looking after him.
A couple of the hardships I know was his father, and unfortunately he wasn't a very big part of his life. The good thing and positive thing about that is he had so much love around him that it didn't bother him.
So we only had like 4 rooms. We had a living room, my grandma's room, grandpa's room, and then all 3 of us stayed in a room. Had my mom and sister up top, and then I had a pull-out bed at the bottom. We were living it right there, shoot. I couldn't have asked for more, and just grateful for my family just doing the most they can.
Grandpa was basically his male father figure. With his dad not part of his life, it was just, my dad was kind of like his best friend.
Yeah, that's my guy right there, so he always looked out for me, you know, always slide me money on the side, you know. He was like, don't tell your grandma. I still haven't told her from this day, but now freaking she'll know, but.
My husband named him T-Bone. Come on, T-Bone. I said, what Rums is it? Why do you call me T-Bone? Because it's fit to your personality.
Being away from home, something foreign, doing the whole walk-on thing, it's not easy. And I don't think a lot of people know, but when he first came in, he was working the graveyard shift at Walmart to pay for school and everything.
Yeah, so honestly, it was literally just taking the most out of every opportunity. I think that's kind of what I live on. And so I just literally just worked worked super hard because like Coach Lamb and all of them, they have like best guys will be on the field. You know, that's what I strive to be. And then just literally working my way from special teams, working my way up.
He had a great sense of urgency to do anything it took to earn a scholarship. And again, I think that goes back to why he was willing to play defense. He was willing to play anything we needed him to do. He just wanted to prove his worth to earn that scholarship. And of course, he's clearly done that now. He's, in my opinion, he's one of the best running backs in the country.
All those long days and nights, you know, working and doing whatnot to get to where he is, I think has definitely helped him, just motivate him and push him to another level.
Big hole. Allgeier to the 20, to the 10, touchdown. Get to see the speed of the big man. And Allgeier sprint into the end zone. Catch the 30, the 25, the 20 comes inside 15. Tyler Allgeier with the touchdown, and the Cougars score. Tyler Allgeier runs it left and right into the end zone.
Literally when I left, you know, obviously leaving Gramps was hard enough, especially, but he was always just proud of me, especially just even getting the preferred walk-on spot, just because I'll be the first to graduate from college and all of that. So that's a big thing for me, and losing him was for sure a big toll on me, so.
I actually had to call Tyler around 1 o'clock in the morning, and I told him, I think it's time.
Put him, Tyler, in the peace time. He was talking to his grandpa. It's okay, Grams, to go. I'm here with you, talking to you.
It really hurt him. He wanted to be here to hold his hand. My dad's last breath, Tyler was on the phone with us, and everybody was there in the room, and we basically said our last goodbyes.
He was just doing his thing, and then next minute he has cancer. You never expect that on your own family, you know, just going through that. So literally just taking literally everything, day by day, and just making the most out of your opportunities that you have.
When you go, leave the house, say goodbye and kiss everybody, because you never know what's going to be happening.
It breaks my heart because I'm sure his grandpa would have been thrilled to see him play at the next level, because I believe wholeheartedly he has that talent and that caliber. It's been cool to see just the growth in him and understand like who he really is doing this for.
Say good luck, Tyler.
Good luck, Tyler.
Love you.
Love you.
What a story. Deep Blue with Tyler Allgeier. Heavy stuff.
He's a special dude.
Yes,
and
he is.
Relationships are what matter in life, right? And that relationship meant so much to him. Not having a father figure, having his grandpa. Hopefully grandma watched and realized he was getting money on the side, like you said, which is hilarious. He was doing graveyard shifts at Walmart as a walk-on. That is unbelievable.
And playing linebacker.
Yes. He deserves everything good that comes to him because he's worked so hard, right? And he's going to be an NFL running back.
Yeah, last I checked, he's a 5th-round grade.
That will be a life-changing event for himself and his family, which he has earned.
Yeah, so happy for Tyler and his success, and I look forward to many more things. It's a great opportunity to watch him play every week.
Absolutely. What a dude. Okay, coming up, what is BYU playing for in the Final Five? We'll revisit.
And an elite goal scorer gets our rise and shout-out. We don't use that in vain. This is BYU Sports Nation.
Introducing the all-new 2021 Nissan Rogue. A fuel-efficient car that's compact enough to park just about anywhere, but has enough cargo space to fit your hobbies, your kids' hobbies, and your dog's hobbies. It's equipped with the latest safety and efficiency technology for a smooth and quiet ride wherever you want to go, whether it's through the neighborhood or across the country. Are you ready to rogue? It's at Tim Daly Nissan Southtown.
BYU Food to Go's convenient location at 2191 North Canyon Road in Provo makes bringing popular BYU foods to your next event easy. Everything's ready when you need it at the drive and load pickup. You drive in and they load no matter the weather. And stop in the on-site creamery for great BYU chocolate milk and ice cream. BYU Food to Go, bringing campus to your table. Call for details, 801-422-5001.
We're fast and we're great communicators. We are expecting to meet as many biological relatives as possible.
My navigation skills are going to take us to the winner's box.
We're just a really uplifting, positive, funny team.
You know that moment?
When you know something big is about to go down.
Your life's about to change forever?
Yeah, that's this moment.
Oh my goodness.
Life-changing, a blessing, and amazing.
I've taken family for granted.
I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I'm going in without expectations.
It's nerve-wracking for sure.
Yeah, but we're ready.
Yeah, we're ready.
We're ready. This is a total work of art. This is amazing. Thank you so much.
For some, this line is where the journey started.
For us, it's been the journey of our lives.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
On the latest Deep Blue podcast, they talked to Mark and Leanne Pope about how the Indiana Pacers forward and David Letterman's assistant found each other. Yep, she was Letterman's assistant. Awesome. Great stories there. And how they've taught their family and team how to enjoy the journey of progress and learning. Listen to it on the BYU Radio app and where podcasts are found.
BYU Sports Nation always available on demand via the BYU TV and BYU Radio apps. Again, download the podcast. Lots of great stuff there. Our question of the day, with 5 games left, what is BYU football playing for in the Final 5? Logan Bylock on Instagram says, you play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Herm Edwards.
Yep, thank you.
BYU beat Herm Edwards.
BYU beat Herm Edwards.
Our elite voice of the day presented by Sundance Mountain Resort. Dan Gerber answers on Facebook. Play for each other. For the fans, for the love of the game. For Shreveport!
That's the rallying cry. Man, they'll be motivated now.
I drove past the Independence Bowl in Shreveport this summer.
Is it a stadium name? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Nice. Like the Rose Bowl?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's a unique place for sure. I would love for BYU to play a team like UTSA or Coastal Carolina in a bowl game, especially if they're undefeated and unbeaten. Or, sorry, that's the same thing. Undefeated and ranked.
Unbeaten is the soccer term when you tie.
Right.
Yeah. They are unbeaten because they're
Unbeaten and
3-0-4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, today's Rise and Shoutouts presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics. I would like to give one to Ashley Hatch.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Who is leading the National Women's Soccer League in goals scored this year. She just tallied her 10th goal of the season last weekend.
Dude.
On top of the list. Well done, Ashley.
That's great. Tyler Ogier, obviously, for Deep Blue and the kind of guy he is. Also, we've just learned that a BYU volleyball ball boy named Jacob West passed away recently in an accident in southern Utah. So our thoughts and prayers are going out to Jacob West's family, one of the BYU volleyball ball boys.
Yeah, there's a GoFundMe for Jacob to help pay for
I'll tweet out the link here in a
expenses.
second.
We'll send out the link. Certainly send our love to him. Our thanks to today's guest, Greg Wrubell.
Sorry to Dennis, ran out of time. Conversation continues on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Use hashtag BYUSN.
For Jarom Jordan, I am Spencer Linton. Shout out to Jamie Rendich-Beck. We'll see you tomorrow on BYU Sports Nation. As a reminder, listen to BYU Women's Soccer tonight on BYU Radio 107.9 FM and the BYU Cougars app. Go Cougs.